Sure, Desha. Yeah. Yes, definitely. Uh, yeah, so that's gonna help you guys. So what we request as facilitators to focus on the week lecture. I think that's the easiest way to ensure that you understand what's being discussed. So when it gets accumulated, then it's going to be a lot of content, right? Even yeah, so uploading these files, the recordings week by week will help you in case you have something to clarify. Shall we start? Yeah, let others join. So, as we agreed earlier, if you have any questions, please do type in the comment section. I will address them during the lecture, right? So again, despite the challenges we have, we can make it interactive. I think that's great. Otherwise, it's going to be one way, and this is very different to how a classroom happens, right? So you'll have a lot of questions actually. Of course, this is a very new experience for us, but that said, we need to optimize interaction. That's the way that we ensure that you understand what I'm saying, and when you have a concern, I need to know it. Otherwise, I keep on going, assuming that you understand everything. That's it. What we discussed so far are pretty basics. So therefore, I assume we all understood what we discussed, right? Now on, there can be certain areas where we are not so comfortable. Yeah. So I will mute you when you want to speak up. Please unmute yourself and speak. Okay. All right. So all this one is okay. So do you see the screen? You have to unmute. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Uh, okay. Right. So let's get started. Today, first of all, let me thank all of you who joined this session. So now on, actually, we are going to dig deeper in terms of the concepts and the practices, try to understand what exactly are the practices in a project management team, right? Again, we are wearing the project manager hat in learning this course, the contents. So you need to think all these concepts as a project manager, right? If you are managing a project, if you are accountable for managing a project delivery, these are the things that are going to be utilized, right? So we are going to discuss quite a few project management methodologies. We already started talking about PMBOK. PMBOK stands for Project Management Body of Knowledge, right? It is a governing body for project management domain where we have a lot of disciplines and practices around project management defined by PMBOK. So there are a lot of certifications starting from associate project management professional, then project management professional, program management professional, then portfolio management professional. It goes on, right? So it's a discipline that we need to know. There are a lot of companies who are demanding for these certifications, right? Good news for you guys is since you guys are studying an MSc on project management, it's going to add much more value. However, So as you realize, this module is talking about quite a few areas, right? So at any point of time, when you complete this particular module, if you want to proceed on project management domain on that track, you may need to do those qualifications. One is a project management professional, right? So with this knowledge, you can do that easily. However, there will be separate training sessions for such certifications. Yeah. So with that, let's go in. Before we go into what we are going to discuss today, I would like to discuss what we discussed already in the previous lecture, not the first one, but the previous one. So we pretty much talk about two things. One is project management fundamentals. That's where we spoke about three constraints, three project management constraints, right? Any given project, there are three constraints that we have to manage. If you remember them, these are namely time, cost, and scope, right? If you are a project manager, your responsibility is to manage these three constraints to ensure that your project delivery is a success. Your project is a success. Got it? Yeah. So sometimes what happens is, now this was a traditional thinking. We are still talking about that, right? It's absolutely essential that you manage these three constraints for you to be successful in a given project. Whether it's a small project, whether it's a long-term, high-critical project, it's a must, right? In case you fail on any particular constraint, you're gonna fail in your project delivery, and your stakeholders are going to be frustrated. Your management is gonna start panicking, right? So that's the basic. That is definitely must. However, the modern project management trend is also to look at one additional parameter called value. That essentially means, say, if you consider this program as a project, right? This module as a project. So we have these three constraints, right? We have a timeline, we have a budget. That is the budget that is allocated by the institute next, and being instructed to the facilitators and the staff, saying, hey, this is the budget that we have to manage with it, right? In that case, we will not be able to exceed the number of sessions that we have agreed. It could be done, providing there's a critical need. It can't be a huge variation, right? The budget got to be managed within the agreed limits. It would say, hey, this is the minimum you should spend, and this is the maximum. Do not go above that, right? So what are two things that we discussed? We have a timeline, we have a budget. The third is the scope. That is what we are discussing here, right? So during these 10 sessions, I need to ensure that I cover sufficient content so that you understand the project management principles and practices, and you are able to complete your assignment as a bare minimal requirement. Yeah. So those are the three constraints. So that is the scope, right? So say I manage all these three things, and at the end of the 10th session, I ask you how I feel. You would say good. But what could happen is we would have overlooked the fourth parameter, that is the value. That is why I also reminded before the session, ideally this needs to be an interactive session, right? That is the only way I can ensure that I deliver the right value in every week, in every session. So I don't have to wait for the 10th session in order to see whether you have got the right value, right? Now I want to hear. Yeah. So if you feel like, no, this is not so valuable, then there is an adjustment that has to happen from our end, from my end, to ensure that I deliver, as a facilitator, I deliver the expected value, bare minimal value. So when I meet that bare minimal value, then I can see if I can make you excited, if you can make you so satisfied about the entire module. So that is the value delivery part, right? Similarly, when you do a project, you need to work on three constraints. What are those? Time, cost, third one, scope. right? While meeting these three constraints, you also have to pay attention on the fourth parameter, that is value. Value is what the customers get as a benefit. It could be a service, it could be one particular outcome, it could be a product, whatever it is. Customers will feel excited, right? Great about what is being delivered. So when that is not the case, actually customers would, customers and the vendor, the company will agree that, okay, we have delivered and this is what you have told us. However, the clients will not feel as if they are really, really benefited. Right? You may close the deal, that's it. If you have delivered exceptional value, you have retained the client. So the modern trend is to think about the total value delivery than just focusing on these three constraints. Does that make sense? Yeah. So whenever you work on any one project situation, you got to remember that there is a fourth parameter, that is the value delivery, value perspective. Yeah. So remember that. So we discuss things like that. The second thing that we discussed was we discussed about the process group activities. Do you remember the process groups that we discussed? If you look at this, these are the process groups that we discussed. There are 5 processes in PMBOK, right? According to PMBOK, Project Management Body of Knowledge, there are 5 processes for any given project. So if you are a project manager, you need to know what these processes, you need to know what activities that have to be done, and you should manage them. So we discussed these activities in a kind of a detailed manner, but we did not go into real practical context. Today, what we are going to do is to talk about the same 5 processes, right? What are these 5 processes? Initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling. It's mentioned as controlling here, so it is also known as monitoring and controlling. The last step, closing. And then the sixth step is not process, right? It's just to indicate that you are working on certain cross-project improvements. So you may go back to a project that is already done, try to improve certain things. So it's not a process within the project management steps. Yep. So any questions before we proceed? I would like to see, I'm going back to the comments. Do you have any questions prior moving into the contents today? Are we good? So we've got quite a few new guys join. Thanks for joining. Okay, so we are good. Right, going back to the presentation. Let's see what is for the session today. So what we discuss, what you're going to discuss today are process groups, project management process groups. So we are going to clearly identify what are the processes within our project management life cycle, and then we are going to study them in depth, kind of knowing what exactly the things that we do in each of these 5 process groups, right? Just can you try to recall these 5 processes without looking at them? What is the first one? Initiation. Second, planning. Third, execution. Fourth, monitoring and controlling. Fifth, closing. Yeah. So that essentially means you will initiate the project and go through a set of other steps, finally close it. Closing is the finalization of the project, dissolving the team, getting the client to pay, and then say, hey, this delivery is done, right? So we kind of close the deal. Between initiation and closing, what are the 3 things that happen? Number 1, planning. Once you initiate your project, you got to work on the plan here, right? So it's primarily everything that needs to be planned have to be planned. So that will include a lot of things, right? That will include about the activities that you have to do, the things that you have to implement, the cost, resources, right? All these things will have to be planned there. And then the risk, certain risks that are available and how to mitigate them, how to action solutions to them, all that we plan there. The third or the second thing in between these two steps, initiation and closing, is monitoring and controlling. After planning, you execute. Let's say execute. You start developing it, right? So you have completed the planning, then you are going into the implementation. So during the implementation, you implement what's been planned. Of course, what is being planned are solving certain problems that we identify during the initiation phase. And then the third step in between the initiating and closing is monitoring and controlling. So that is to look at everything that happens within a project and monitor them. So we start reporting certain statistics saying, hey, we have 10 requirements. Out of 10 requirements, 5 have been completed. 3 is in progress and 2 are yet to be started. Things like that, right? And the risks, what are the risks? What kind of things that we have to monitor? What is the severity of these risks? All these things will have to be monitored. So once you have the things monitored, then you can control them. You are trying to identify what are the control mechanisms that you're going to implement in order to get the project under control to deliver what we are hoping to deliver. So once you are done with the execution, you will close the project, right? So you see that the monitoring and controlling, or controlling here, is not just after execution, it is between planning and execution. That essentially means you plan for something, execute it. While you're executing, you monitor it, figure out certain changes that have to be implemented, then again go back to the planning and plan, execute again. So it goes in a loop until you implement everything that needs to be implemented in the effective way. And when you are happy, when you present it to the client would say, hey, now I agree that you guys have delivered, well done. So that's the moment we are going to close the project. So that's where we are having final discussions with the vendor and the client. Then we create an acceptance documentation, get the signatures for them. We finalize the legal contracts. Project is being archived. Then we redeploy the resources, right? And finally, any outstanding issues and changes can occur. So if there are any outstanding issues that have to be fixed, we come with a schedule saying, let's close the project, but however, we are going to support this project for the next 3 months. Yeah. So that's the way it happens. So there are 5 processes that we are going to discuss in detail. Yeah. Hopefully it's clear. So let's start with the initiating process group. So it's the first process group, obviously, right? As the name suggests, it initiates the project. So there are quite a few things that have to happen there, right? So the initiating process starts with authorizing the project and providing the project manager. So then at the initiation phase, what we do is it starts with authorizing the project. That essentially means the senior leadership will say, hey, we authorize this project as a priority. Then it's decided. Then we think of a project team, right? Even prior deciding a project team, we assign a project manager. So usually when I was a project manager, this is the time where my manager calls me, where some other guests are seated with him, and then I'm being briefed at a very high level, say in any role. We are going to start a new project. The project is this. It's a very critical thing. These are the basic things that you have to do. You will be the project manager, right? I'll be made accountable. Then that's it. And after that, I need to start planning them with them. From that moment, the project manager starts following up, start owning the project. So if the project manager is well experienced project manager, the senior people will make him or her accountable to take it forward, right? Project manager will start leading it. So there are major outputs that are expected in this phase. So if you look at this slide, it's very clear. Number one is the project charter. Number two, identified stakeholders. Number three, strategy for managing stakeholders. So that's all. So those are the major outputs expected at the end of the initiating process. Yeah. So some of you may have heard of most of three things. These three things. Some of you may not have. So let me just ask, who has heard of project charter? You can type yes in the chat window. Have you heard of project charter? Don't worry, I'm not going. Okay, Tejani has said yes. Great. Anyone else? Asela Hassan, that's fine. Dilshan has heard. What about the rest? No. Okay, Asita says no. Okay, so that essentially means most of you have heard of it, right? Let me explain. So project charter. So I can also show you sample charter. Do you see my screen? Here. So I have a template for that. So this is a charter according to the PMBOK, right? Based on the standards that you use, you may call it a project chart or something else. If you use Agile or any other modern trending project management approaches, you may not have a chart. For example, Agile does not have a chart, but we may create a chart. There's no harm doing that because it has a good purpose. The purpose is to document the basics about the project, right? Few critical things that we talk about in the project charter. First, background. You're going to explain the project background, right? Saying this project is about implementing a power plant. We need to make it a sophisticated power plant so that it can cater this amount of energy, etc. Right? You're going to brief it. Whatever the background, whatever you know about the project, you're going to just put that down here, right? Just ensure that it is sufficient enough. Second, goals. What goals are we trying to achieve by implementing this project? It's very important. So it doesn't matter what how big or how small the project that you're going to work on. So always you have to know the SMART objectives, clear objectives, or the goals of the project implementation, right? So it's very critical. Now, in your case, how would this be written? First, for the assignment, right? When you go through the assignment brief, you will get a project brief. It will say these are the this is the project background, this is the project context, and these are the goals that you have to achieve during your project assignment. So you got to clearly identify them. So there can be any number of goals. Generally, we would limit it to 5 goals. Sometimes there can be many goals, right? But they got to be limited so that you have a very focused attention. The third key thing that you may discuss is the scope. What is the scope? Now, example. Say you're implementing a leave management system, right, for your company. So then you would say the background, why we are doing this, and what is the reason behind, what is the budget allocated, what are the priorities that problems that we are trying to solve. Then 3 goals. What should come in the scope? Saying what is the scope that we are supposed to work on. For example, we could say the first phase 1 is just to record the leaves. That's it, right? You do not need any reporting mechanism. You do not need any searching capability. All what you need to do is to allow the employees to record the leaves. And the leaves could be ended up in an Excel. That's fine, right? So you give a form to the employees when they want to book a leave, and then when they fill it out, submit it, that will end up in an Excel file. Perfectly all right, because your face said your goal is to achieve this. You did not focus on any automation. You did not focus on reports. You did not focus on approvals. Yeah, get what I'm saying? So it's very crucial. So this is one reason why most of the projects fail. We pay very poor attention on the scope that is to be agreed, and we assume the things and try to do. And then at the end of the project delivery, the client says, this is not the scope that I wanted. Right? Either way, the client might say, this is too much. I never asked these things. Why did you develop it? Or the client might say, well, this is not good enough. I expected more. So always we need to be very clear. Then the key stakeholders. Now remember this, in traditional form, when you say stakeholders, it includes everyone who is involved in the project. That includes the client, that includes the people from the leadership, that includes the direct project team, including the project manager. Everyone is termed as stakeholders. That's why you see here, everyone's name is listed here. Right? So you may say this is the client, this is the sponsor, this is the project manager, and these are the project team members. In agile context, you really don't have to worry a lot, but I'm just saying because there's a clear difference. In agile context, when you say stakeholders, it does not include the team. It's just the people excluding the team, right? So that's a clear difference. So when you say stakeholders, we really don't mean team members in agile teams, but in PM work context, the traditional teams, we do include everyone into the stakeholder group. Then we need to talk about the project milestones, project budget. Now this is one game-changing step. Now if you start managing your project, even at the initial stage, you got to start looking at these 4 things, right? So this is also known as this way. You will put risk first, risks, assumptions, issues, and dependencies. You can do this. So we call it RAID analysis. We are going to look at all these 4 things, right? Risks are issues that may occur in future. Assumptions are things that we assume, right? For example, I can assume something and see, but you got to note it down. Agree. Issues are the problems that we have encountered currently. So we are going through those problems. Dependencies are the things that are affecting project delivery. We may depend on another, right? We may depend on software. We may depend on certain hardware. So we need to figure out all these dependencies. And then finally, you get the approval from the key people from the leadership, project client, project sponsor, and project manager. Got it? So there are, templates like that. We are not going to go through all of them in detail, but I just wanted to ensure that you understand it here. All right? Any questions from anyone at this point? We're good? All right. So that is project charter. Then we identify the stakeholders. So that can be done in the project charter itself. Got it? Because there's a section for you to identify the stakeholders. Why do you need to do that? Just to be clear, who are the people interested about what we are doing? Right? We need to know the sponsor. We need to know the leaders. Right? If there are managers and other people from the leadership involved, you got to figure them out and put them down there because they will have a role. Then the third thing is strategy for managing stakeholders. What is that? What about strategy? Say you have a sponsor. So as the project team, you need to decide a strategy to manage the sponsor effectively. That essentially means the sponsor is the guy who funds. Now, say it's multi-million project, right? The sponsor is not just going to assume that things are going to go, well and ignore. No, the sponsor will be always curious about what's happening around the project. So, project manager and the team have to ensure that you come up with a strategy to manage that stakeholder, because it's the guy who has funded. If he's unhappy, he can withdraw himself at any point of time, right? So we don't want to happen. We need to ensure that he's happy and he's really positive about what's happening around us. So you come up with a strategy. Strategy may include your communication plan. Strategy may include where at what point you go back to him and see the feedback. At one point you're going to do a demonstration and say, hey, this is the progress, right? So this is the workable features, products. You can take them and go and sell them to your clients. So as you are proceeding, you come up with a strategy to manage these stakeholders effectively. Similarly, other stakeholders. Yep. So that's that. So during this, I want to discuss about one. Now, these are some of the new concepts that you probably learn. These are the tricks. These are the effective practices, concepts that you must remember managing a project. Otherwise, we always think everything has to be defined in detail at the initial time and then move on. Sometimes it's not a possibility. Sometimes certain information might not be available when you start, right? Then you need to evaluate, is that okay? Can we move ahead? If so, figure out the way to move ahead without just complaining and then, bothering the client saying we need every single detail before proceeding to the next step. It might be the case, but there are situations where you can actually proceed with what you know and then later figure out the details. So this is about that, progressive elaboration. What progressive elaboration means is at the time you start discussing about the project requirement, that may include the scope and then other requirements, you may not know everything about something. Gradually, as you move on, you may elaborate the details. So you are progressively elaborating a given set of requirements, right? As you start, you know very little, then you ask, okay, can we proceed? If the answer is yes, proceed. So maybe after the first week, you have got to a point and then you can't move on ahead any further. That's because you are dependent on certain other clarifications. Now you need to find those information. It will ensure that it allows you to move on. Right? So this is a great way of avoiding procrastination or delaying the things, deferring the things. Yeah. So it allows the project team to start working on the things that you know. So you need to critically judge whether you can do so. If your judgment says no, we can't proceed, we don't have sufficient information, then it's a blocker. But if your answer says, well, with this information we can proceed for another 5 days, but at the end of the 5 days we need these clarifications, right? So that is what progressive elaboration is about. The second point, PM plan is finalized in planning, but detailed estimates, scope, and some other points might be clarified during execution or monitoring and controlling. You can go up to the monitoring level to clarify some of the details, but it's a critical thing. What could happen is your client and your product leadership may insist that you have to proceed, right? That's not right. If the team feels like, no, we don't have sufficient information. If the team feels we have sufficient information, perfectly all right. Yeah. So again, we are talking about initiating process group. Project manager design. So during the phase, we learned that the project manager will be assigned to the project. Project manager assigned early in the process in order to facilitate the discussions with the stakeholders, lead the project related discussions and plan. Because project has not started yet, right? It's the initiation phase. We are just talking about the project related priorities, concerns, risks, and plan ahead. This is not the case in real world for many cases. So even when we say the project manager will be assigned to a project during the initiating phase, your question would have been, is it real? You wouldn't have come across in the situation where you saw a PM assigned during the initial discussions. But that is the right thing. If the project manager is there, he or she is capable of facilitating the right thinking, right process, right set of tools, right? So remember that. The next thing that you need to do is to develop a business case. So what did we do first before the business case? What was the document we said we need to create? Project charter. Yeah. Now, looking at the project charter, we need to develop a business case. Business case explains the reason why the project started is taken into account throughout the project. Yeah. So there's a project started. The business case justifies the business reasons. These are the business reasons, business objective, why we started this project. Therefore, this is a priority. This is significant priority for the company. Therefore, we got to ensure that this is done. So once we do the business case, we take it to the client and then get their sign off. Then the management will sign it, pass it to the project team to continue. So during the initiating process, another thing that we do is high-level planning. Yeah. So in terms of planning, there are quite a few things critically needed, right? So if you look at the 3 bullet points, that explains what we need to do, plan at a high level. Number 1, creating high-level WBS. Let me ask, anyone remember what is WBS? Anyone, if anyone can type what WBS stands for? I'm delighted to see. Oh, wow. Yes, you're right. Thank you. So that's great. Yeah. Did I just, yeah. Yeah, obviously it's WBS stands for work breakdown structure. What is the work breakdown structure? Now during the project there are a lot of work that have to be done, right? How traditional project plans are developed is identifying the major milestones, work that have to be delivered, then coming up with a breakdown. For example, now in terms of creating a leave management system, we might have a breakdown saying identify the requirements, finalize the design, then what? Development. And then these are the high level phases, right? The processes we discussed. Then the next level would be under identifying the requirements, right? So what exactly are you doing? Things like what? Coming up with a project charter, one step. Coming up with a WBS, it would be another thing, right? I mean, even that can be done. So maybe, by the time we create this, those are done. Then what? Finalize the requirement specification, right? Coming up with a design. All these things, sub-tasks, sub-activities can come into the work breakdown structure. So it's a segregation of work that is to be done in a hierarchical manner. So we'll have level 1 work that have to be done, level 2 work have to be done. It can go up to many levels, multiple levels. Yeah. So I can show you one quickly, maybe later. I'll take you through them towards the end. The second thing is order of magnitude estimate. So this is an estimate that is really helpful for you to figure out the workload, how big these tasks are, right? Also the order, in which order we are going to process the work. Yeah, so we're going to estimate them. and then based on the magnitude, the weightage of it, we are going to kind of make a judgment. So these are the first set of priorities and tasks that we have to be done. These are the ones to come later. The third thing is high-level risk identification. So at the initiating phase itself, we are going to list down the high-level risks. Example, say, I'll give you a scenario, right? The project team that we have, that we know that we have within the organization are not competent enough on the selected domain. Then what do you do? So during the initiating phase, if you figure some concern like that, you're going to put that as a risk. Current project team is not very competent on the project domain. Domain is the area that we have selected. Then that comes as, then what do? So you come up with various other details like what is the severity, how severe it is. I would say medium, right? We could do the work with them gradually, try to improve. So I would categorize it as medium severity. Then if you look at what is the response, how do you respond to this particular risk? I would say mitigate, right? We can't totally avoid it, or we can't totally just ignore that. Rather, we are going to say we are going to mitigate that. That essentially means while working, we are going to come up with some remediation. We're going to come up with some solutions to solve that problem. Yeah, so that's basically the initiating group. Before I move on to the next step, is there anything that you guys need to clarify? So this is very important for your assignment, right? How it works is you are given an assignment brief. Yeah, so there are two assignments. The first project is about some kind of research work. You're going to research certain topics, come up with your justification and present it. That's straightforward. The second that you are going to do is to implement a project, right? I mean, you're not going to implement, you're going to plan. You're going to complete the planning, coming up with estimations, all the other details that are required for a planning phase. So in order to do so, you need to critically understand at the initiating phase what have to happen. So for you, when you start the assignment, initiating phase would be the phase where you try to understand the requirements, identify the types of documentation that is required, the steps that have to be done, the planning that needs to be done. All that will be planned at a high level, right? Then the next step is what we are going to discuss is called planning. Yeah. So any questions? If you do so, please type it in the comment section because it's always important to ensure that we all understand what we discussed so far before we go into the next topic. No? You don't?